Join us for a transformative journey of learning, growth, and innovation. Explore cutting-edge business trends, gain insights from industry leaders, and network with global professionals. Get ready to transform with iCentra. Stay tuned for updates, exciting topics, and renowned guest speakers. Keep an eye on all our social media pages for more details. Your transformation journey continues here. Transformed by iCentra.
Welcome everyone to another edition of the Transform by iCentra webinar. My name is Esther Shirley and I'm going to be your host for today. The Transform by iCentra webinar is where we engage with industry experts, with innovators and professionals to be able to have conversations on things that relate to business, work, and also the society. So today we're going to be speaking on a very interesting topic, which is integrating information security in your organization's culture. Of course, we know that in today's digital world, information security is no longer seen as just a responsibility of the IT department. We now believe that information security is everybody's business and responsibility. So today we have some industry experts with us, and we're going to be discussing, so how do we integrate this information security into our culture beyond just compliance to making it a way of living in our organization? What are the role of leaders and employees, and what practical steps are we going to take to ensure that we are building an organization that is resilient and conscious when it comes to the issue of information security? So we have two speakers with us. I'm going to be introducing them. Firstly, we're going to have a presentation by the first speaker, and then we're going to go into the panel session where we will also discuss some questions further with the speakers. And then we will take some more questions from the audience as we continue. So I'm going to be introducing our first speaker, who is going to give us the presentation. Our first speaker is Mr. Innocent Atasie. Mr. Innocent has over 20 years of industry experience and more than 250 successful ISO system audit engagements under his belt. Mr. Innocent is a recognized authority in cybersecurity, data privacy, compliance, and enterprise risk management. His work has taken him across Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Ghana, Kenya, the United States, and other countries where he has helped organizations embed security deeply into their culture and their operations. Mr. Innocent is a certified Chief Authority Security Officer. Mr. Innocent is a certified Chief Security Officer with Cisco, and also holds impressive global portfolio including CISA, CISM, CIRIC, CDPSE. He's also a lead auditor and trainer in multiple ISO standards such as ISO 27001, 27701, 22301, which is business continuity, 9001, which is quality, and also 20,000, right? He's a fellow of several international management institutes. I mean, I can go on and on regarding his profile. So Mr. Innocent will be our first speaker. He's going to carry us on a brief presentation, and then after that, we are going to go into our Q&A sessions. Please, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to drop it in the comment section, and we're going to attend to it. So Mr. Innocent, thank you very much for being here with us. You're welcome. Kindly unmute your mic and put on your camera so that we can see you. You're welcome. So I'm going to I'll hand it over to you for your presentation in about 20 minutes. And then after that, we go into the Q&A session. You're welcome, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, Esther, for that awesome introduction. I would say, do I say good morning to some, good afternoon, and there's good evening. You're welcome to this very important section. I want to use the opportunity to thank the organizers of this program for counting me worthy to, to grace, this event. All protocols duly observed. I would have loved to mention names of maybe people I may know in the call, but time will not permit us to do so. So, like our anchor has rightly said, I'm going to spend a few minutes. I wish I had more time, explaining this concept, but I'll try as much as possible to be disciplined to hit the nail on the head. So I will say welcome. Thank you for making our time to join this section. So we're talking about integrating information security into your organizational culture. So information security has become a very important, if I may say, an extremely important concept in today's digital world. No individual would say he does not have anything to do with information. So whether you are collecting, or whether you are processing, or whether you're storing it, or whether you are disposing it, every one of us have one thing or the other to do, with information. So you can see it is no mean topic, and it's not something that should be considered an option, anywhere across the globe. So I will be taking us briefly on some, concepts. I know some of us may be conversant with it, but I think it's also good to set the tone, regarding how we would engage when we get to the panel section. I believe you can see my slide. So I'll quickly be talking about some misconceptions about information security and its adoption. So since we're talking about integrating into culture of the organization, so let us actually understand what culture means, what type of cultures that exist, and how we can align. We'll look at some few concepts around information security that will help drive the message, and then maybe one or two strategies for information security integration. So here we are, top 7. Okay, top 7 misconceptions about information security adoption. So every now and then you hear different funny things, about integrating information security. You hear things like information security is an IT department's issue. So you go to some organizations, and the next thing, when you mention InfoSec, they hands off and say, no, it's not my area. It's not part of what I do. It doesn't sound familiar, in any way. So we'll try to find out today if this is really true, but I'm considering this as a misconception, and that's misconception number 1. Number 2, only external sources pose security threats. So it's like saying as long as I'm inside, I cannot catch code, as long as I'm inside, so he's saying only external sources pose security threats. So I won't get caught because I do not visit malicious websites. Okay, so I'm sure where I'm going. Okay, we are clear regarding what we assess and what we don't. Okay, so being a kind of sentimental. Okay, then the third one here is security tools are enough. Some think when we talk about information security, we are referring to tools or technologies. It's way beyond that. We'll find out in the course of this program. So you hear certain people in certain organizations tell you that this is information security thing you're talking about has to do with tools, and we have enough from what we can see. In fact, if we have antivirus software, it can protect our organization sufficiently from common threats. So you hear things like this, our organization is not big. How many are we in the first place? Okay, who is really interested in us? So why do you think we are a potential target? Leave us the way we are. Sorry, if you are joining from a different part of the world, I beg, I use means, please. Okay, please. All right, so here, our organization is not that big. Okay, I don't think, attackers could consider us as a potential target, okay, which I consider as a misconception. Misconception number 5, we have never experienced a cyber attack, so our security posture is very strong. We've heard it around town. It's been happening to others, but it can't happen to us. So since it's not happening to us, then it means we are doing well. It means we are doing well. Okay, so we'll try to find out if that is good enough, okay, to consider. A third-party security provider we secure everything. There's this, I call it some kind of behavior, amongst, certain organizations with their third parties, where they feel that once they've outsourced a particular process or function, activity, then not all of a sudden the third party, has responsibility for protecting them all of a sudden. So by 100. So when you tell them, okay, you have their shared responsibilities in certain areas, and they tell you, no, we have paid for it. What are we paying for? Is that not what we agreed? And so we try to find out today if when we outsource our security to a third party, then we should go to sleep in the sense that we are secured, or we have maintained an information security posture. So can't you just do without changing something every time? These people that always come with change here and every now and then, there must be something to change. You always want to upgrade something. You always want to add. Can't we just be the way we are? Can't. So to hear a lot of things like that, every time you want to review, every time you want to audit, you want to, create some awareness. The ones we've been doing, have we forgotten? And so on. So you hear things, very funny things like that. Okay, so I thought to limit this to 7. All right, it's very prominent 7 misconceptions, about information security that I have been privileged. I will consider that as a privilege, to hear. Okay, firsthand. So you go to clients, and you begin to hear and see things, play out along those lines. So in summary, we've never experienced cyber attack. So security posture is strong. A third-party service provider will secure everything. So can't you just do without changing something every time? Information security being an IT department's issue, since I can't get caught because I do not visit, malicious websites. So he already knows which site is malicious and which one is not. So I don't visit. Now, security tools, like we said, those who think it's tools oriented, when you have the right tools or technology, then that's information security by their own definition. Okay, then here you have organization is not big, so I don't think attackers have our time, interested in us. Okay, so some misconceptions. Now, what is culture? There's this saying by Peter F. Drucker that culture is strategy for breakfast. Okay, I thought to recall that. I know many of us are conversant with this statement. So what it means is that culture is powerful. Culture is powerful. Okay. You regardless of the strategy you come up with, the tool, your approach, your methodology, if you do not understand the culture, you will not make headway. So InfoSec integration, can be burdensome without understanding the culture of the organization. So now, what exactly is culture? I would say for me, I would say culture we consider culture as how do I look at that? Okay, first of all, we look at it as beliefs. Let's look at general ones. Beliefs, values, attitudes, and how these influence the behavior of employees. Yeah, that reminds me. Language, so including body language, so those things that are unsaid. Okay, they may not be tangible, but it makes a lot of sense. It outlines or clearly indicates what matters most. Yeah, that was the phrase I was looking for. So what matters the most to that organization? What are they striving for? What drives them? What are they ready to give up to get? So that's what informs you about the culture of that organization. So when you look at their language, the customs, their habits, attitudes, which is visible in the way that they get work done, and of course amplified by the behavior of leaders. So we get to understand in the course of this program why we think leaders have a key role to play, in in improving the culture of the organization to enable what's proper integration or innovation of information security. All right, so quickly, school of thought from Cameron and Quinn. Yes, we can summarize organizational culture into 4. Okay, you can have a mix of some organizations. Yes, you can have some organizations prominent in one area, and then you can see traces of the other type of culture or system, along the line. Okay, but Queen and Cameroon here has been able to break this into 4 for us, and it's applicable, in any client, region, location, or even business, or even size of the organization. So here we have the 4, which are the clan culture, you have advocacy culture, market culture, and hierarchy culture. So time will not permit you to go into greater details, but I just want you to know this. So the clan culture refers to the family kind of culture. Then the advocacy culture, it's the innovative one. Okay. And then you have the the advocacy one, which I said is innovation. Okay, they are more drawn to innovation. Market culture, they are more drawn to results. So results, they are more result oriented. Okay, they are crazy about results. Then hierarchy, it's structure. They are more, drawn to, how their structure, is put together, or what matters to them around, as far as structure of the organization is concerned. Okay, so for me, I would say, okay, when you look at a clan cultured organization, what you see there, on average, what you see is you see a willingness to volunteer there, because it's a family kind of organization. Everyone has a voice. There's little or no fear or prejudice. There's this balanced, organized view, notice, and some level of patience, okay, and commitment to personnel growth. So we're interested, we have each other's back, and so if we are calling for someone who will do something for us, it's easy to get volunteers in such organizations. So that's what we have seen. Okay, then for the advocacy kind of organization, where we say they are more interested in inventions, innovations, what is new, what is changing, so they hate status quo. Okay, they make a lot of room for trial and error. Okay, yes, you can only live once, so you have to give it your best shot. Explorer kind, of culture, and we've seen a good number of organizations that fall in this category. Then you can have the hierarchy cultured organization hierarchy. That will not be strange to many people, where there's a lot of respect for rank, title, salutation. You need to follow from the top. Okay, you need to patiently wait for a response. You need to check for moods before requesting or knocking. Whatever Oga says is fine by me. So you have certain organizations that adopt, exhibit this kind of culture style. Then you have the markets, cultural organization. Like I said, they are result oriented. So whatever the customer is saying, we have to do it. What our competitors are doing, or there is a new certification in town. So because our competitor has gotten it, then we have to get it too. So, they are always drawn to performance and targets. It's greatly pronounced for this type of organizations. Okay, so that's a quick summary because of time. So I'd already mentioned 7 misconceptions about information security, and then the type of cultures that exist, like I said, borrowing a leaf from the book of knowledge or best practice, and how it was also applied, to organizations that, we have interacted with. So now, what is information security, particularly for those of us that may be hearing it for the first time, or maybe heard it and didn't understand, or maybe have a different notion about information security? So I would say welcome again. Okay, so information security, from the word information, of course, we've said earlier that everybody has something to do with information. No organizations can thrive without access to or use of information. So when we talk about information security here, how do we preserve the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information? So how do we preserve the confidentiality of information? How do we maintain the integrity of information, and then availability of information? So, of course, that tells you how important information is to every organization. So information is the life wire of any organization. And because it's the life wire of any organization, big or small, okay, regardless of the sector, industry, obviously that means that information is a key asset to every organization. It's key assets to every organization. So seeing that we're talking about information, how we can protect information, how we can ensure security of information. Information does not operate in isolation. Okay, it must travel through media. Okay, yeah, supporting media. So if you have information, it could be on paper, it could be, on a PC, it could be in a drive, could be, so it could be at rest, or could be on transit. So because we have an agenda to protect our information by ensuring confidentiality, integrity, and availability rules apply, then it means that we must also be interested in protecting the assets that convey this information, including you as a person. Yes, because you have knowledge, certain kind of information, you pass knowledge from time to time. So you also require protection. That's what it means, because you are a conveyor of information. You receive information, you give out information, you handle information, transmit information, and that. Okay. So we are looking at information now as an asset, to the key asset. And because we're interested in protecting information, then we are also interested in protecting other associated assets, and that's what makes up information security. So whether it's people, whether it's processes, whether it's technology you're talking about, whether it's your location or premises, or like some call it sites, or whether it's your documentation, name it. Okay, so assets, of course, is anything of value to an organization. So it is something that has value that will require protection. So on top of the list of assets is information. So we've established that fact that when you talk about assets to an organization, top on the list is information. So if we're trying to protect information, then it means we are indirectly also trying to protect the assets that support, houses, or uses, this information. So they are tangible and intangible assets, so which include business processes, activities, hardware, software, network, personnel, sites, as already mentioned, even business relationships, reputation, trade secrets. Okay, they are also assets to of an organization. All right, so every asset is susceptible to threats. Okay, so assets are susceptible to threats. Now, why do we say assets are susceptible to threats? They are susceptible to threats because they are of value. So you wouldn't keep something of value, outside, off guard, or unguarded. You wouldn't do that. Okay, so because that asset's of value and the amount of protection or level of protection that you administer will be equivalent to what? To the value of that asset. Okay, so the amount of protection you will consider, okay, logically, it should be equal to the value of that of the asset. Why? Because there are there are threat actors. Okay, there are circumstances, or people or entities that are interested in that asset. So whether it's information about a customer, trade information, contacts, personal data, information about market analysis, what have you. Okay, so that's what it means. Now, so assets, like I said, are susceptible to threats because they are of value. So threats are external pressure, any force or factor that can harm an asset, can compromise an asset, try to take advantage of the assets. Okay, it's been discovered that, okay, there's some vital information, which could be, like this image you can see here. So they're trying to, you can see different hands. The different hands there shows different intentions. Okay, so one could be to collect the file, the other could be to read the information in the file, the other could be to steal that document that has the information, the other could be to kidnap the man, the others could be, so you can see that. Okay, so threats are external, outside that particular, asset. Then we have, of course, a good number of them. Time will not permit us. So whether you're looking at fire or pollution, or looking at failure, or eavesdropping, it's a number of different threats that exist around around town. What are vulnerabilities? So why do we need to talk about vulnerabilities? So for our assets to be adequately protected, we need to ensure that weaknesses in those assets are dealt with, or weaknesses in the assets are taken care of. So if those weaknesses in our assets are not taken care of, then there's a high chance that they'll be exploited by threats. If those weaknesses, which we call vulnerabilities, are not taken care of or dealt with in the assets, then they will be they'll be taken care of, or susceptible to these threats, like we mentioned. And that's where you talk about vulnerability being weakness of an asset that can be exploited by a threat. So where there is an absence of a suitable control, okay, so when you don't administer the right control to your systems, of course, you are making your systems vulnerable. Okay, it's not about administering controls. When those controls are not considered suitable, then you're creating what? Vulnerabilities, which can be exploited by threats. So to fix them, okay, so there are a number of vulnerabilities. So when something is not sufficient, when something is lacking in a system, okay, when something is unprotected, when something is incorrect. So once there's a lack, a gap in an asset, okay, that's considered as what? Vulnerability on our team. Okay, there's absence of personnel, so there's lack of understanding or awareness, no training, you know, lack of proper coordination, lack of the right documentation. So once something is missing here and there, it's considered what the vulnerability, which can be what overrun by a threat. So there are controls. Okay, so no asset on its own is devoid of vulnerabilities. So you cannot say because I bought that tool, that therefore, you know, it will work. Once I put it there, it should run on its own. So there are certain things that you may need to do from time to time, okay, to ensure that, okay, it's the vulnerability or the attack surface, that's what we call it, the attack surface is reduced on a regular basis, okay, so that threats will not be able to locate and take advantage of. So that's why we introduce controls. So whether it's controls you consider as policies and procedures, you know, that's approved by management, or you consider controls as certain, you know, actions that needs to be taken, maybe regular reviews or audits, or you consider controls as awareness and training that needs to be done, or you consider controls as, you know, tools that needs to be deployed to detect and to prevent certain, you know, threats from what? From surfacing or taking advantage of our environment. So, and that's why we have controls. So these controls are what's considered as, you know, safeguards or what countermeasures. Okay, when we implement the right way, they're able to help us or reduce this risk, our exposure, you know, to threats. It reduces our exposure to threats to the organization. A typical threat to the organization is maybe key man, you know, when you have just one person who knows everything in the organization, you know, in that kind of instance. So if he leaves today, or God forbid he dies, you know, then what will be our fate? So that's already what, you know, an internal vulnerability to ensure that you have not created redundancy or no succession plan in place. For that reason, you're not having a key man risk, okay, which is not a good way to go. Or you have a situation whereby, you know, people don't go on leave. You know, I'm using very simple things. People don't go on leave in an organization from year to year. There are a number of risks, but you can look at it from the angle of threats and vulnerabilities as well. Okay, so very soon you start having people collapsing. Very soon you start having people who will not want to continue. Very, you know, so those are the kind of things, you know, that can arise as a result of, you know, not paying attention to, you know, protecting our assets, understanding the threats that exist, you know, dealing with these vulnerabilities and applying the relevant controls. Don't forget, we are talking about information security. So we talked about different control types. Time will not permit us to look at all that. So whether preventive, you know, controls, like we talked about, establishing the right policies and procedures, detective controls, like your alarm systems, you know, corrective controls when you call for repairs or maintenance, compensating controls. In case the primary control fails, there's another layer of control that can at least serve for the time being. Anytime the primary one is restated. So you can have this, and it can come on the angle along the lines of administrative controls, or whether there are people controls like conducting strict screening, you know, background checks for employees that are joining the organization, you know, or ensuring that they sign the terms and conditions, or ensuring proper exit of staff from the organization. You talk about physical controls, you know, access to our facilities and our buildings, having the right tools in place to be able to check and ensure that people don't go into the places that they are not authorized to go into. You also have, you know, a good number of technological controls. So to drive home this message, okay, so I mean, there are a number of, you know, ISO standards that you can consider to, you know, to deploy. So, you know, your organization, I see, Esther, your camera is off. Just inform me that time is up. So there are a good number of ISO standards. I'm sure you can talk to iCentra with time. And they will explain all that to you. So we have the 27001, NIST cybersecurity frameworks, you know, CIS critical controls, which you can also adopt as an organization. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to you know, make this presentation. And I believe and hope that every one of us will enjoy it and be glad that we joined. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Innocent. Please, let's put in our emoji. Let's tell him thank you. Let's give him a thumbs up. Thank you so much for sharing this information with us. There is just so much to take in, but of course, for us to understand that information security is not just an IT issue, it's everybody's business. And just because your organization is small doesn't mean that you are not a target. When you outsource your security, you also should not go to sleep. And we saw the different types of culture and how they have, they influence how we adopt information security in the organization. There was just so much we learned about threats and how information is of value. So thank you so much for sharing, Mr. Innocent. We are grateful. So we're going to go into the panel session. Please stay with us. We're going to go into the panel session now, and I'm going to introduce our second speaker. So our second speaker is Mr. Michael Idemudia. He has over a decade of experience at the forefront of strategic information security. He's worked in the area of cybersecurity, IT governance, business continuity, and risk management. He also holds several globally respected certifications like the CISSP, the CISA, the ISO 27001 lead implementer, and auditor. Mr. Michael has helped countless of organizations locally and internationally to design and implement security frameworks that are not only compliant with international standards, like the ISO 27001, ISO 20000, 1301, which is business continuity, but that are also practical and scalable. His experience spans across GDPR, PCI, DSS, and other major regulatory landscapes. So let me stop here. Mr. Michael, you're welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. And now we are going to go into the panel. Please, Mr. Michael, say hello, put on your camera so that we can see you and we can hear your voice as we go into the panel session. You're welcome. Okay. So as we go into the panel session, I'm going to be asking us some questions, and I'll start with Mr. Innocent, and then I'll go to Mr. Michael. So we've learned about information security. We understand that information security is everybody's business and not just an IT issue. We've also learned about culture and how different types of cultural factors, will have an issue as it relates to information security. So again, as a way of reiteration and from your years of experience working with organizations both locally and internationally, what are some of the specific organizational factors that you have seen that have influenced both the success and the failures of adopting information security initiatives? Mr. Innocent.
All right. Thank you. Thank you once again for having me. Some factors I'll consider the structure of the organization. I think that has been I say a pain in the in the neck for many consultants, practitioners or champions, within the organization. So the leadership style, has been somewhat an issue. So where you have it, being regimented, where it's where they are not too open to innovation. Okay, and you don't have the opportunity for people to express their views and bring in something new. We've noticed quite a number of times you see those organizations that are quite flexible in their leadership structure. Okay, and they are also always looking out for how they can improve their systems. It's typically not difficult for them. They can always deploy the right tools or resources, ensure that the right people are where they should be, and ensure that also the program is up and running. So I consider leadership. Okay, the leadership style as the top, a top factor that can, ensure success or failure of the information security management system, adoption or integration. I also consider the work environment. So what type of work environment are we looking at here? Okay, yes, so you know what I mean when I say work environment. So it's encouraging, is it a place you would want to spend the whole day? And bring in your own, your own contribution or your initiatives. Is it are you overly pressured? So that's it. There's some level of at least sociability, within that work environment. Then we look at the aspect of training and development. So there are still some organizations, unfortunately, that consider training as an expense. I don't know where that comes from, but I still hear some organizations say when we train, we are spending. I mean, yes, I know you're spending, but you don't look at it as an expense. Say it's an investment. It's an investment. So you see a lot of organizations tell you, we are spending a lot in training. Or this one you're saying another training, or you're saying we need to develop, or you need to know. Okay, so that's also a factor that can contribute. So any organization that is driven towards, training of their staff, even subjecting themselves to training. So you see in this area of information security, we say cybersecurity, you see some organizations organize trainings for their boards, okay, so that they can also have some understanding of this, principle concept. While some others look at it as a waste of time, don't even think it should be considered in their agenda. Don't even bother attending management review meetings. So whenever our champions are calling and say, please come and, share the meeting or come and air your views or tell us, the next line of action, and you discover that many of them would, so training and development, so for those that are given and are willing to do that, okay, on a regular basis, we see that they continue to succeed, they advance, as far as adoption. And mind you, this standard of information security is not static. It's not static. So at every point in time, it wants you to take another step. You need to look at the other side of it. So any organization that is run towards training and development wins. Okay, then our last one is the pace of innovation. Yes, I'll just drop you there. Pace of, I can see Mr. Michael on the call. How are you, Mr. Michael?
I'm fine, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Just a little bit of technical issues.
Sorry about that.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Michael, you're welcome. So some of the
Thank
key
you.
things I highlighted when Mr. Innocent was speaking as to the specific factors that could lead to the success or the failure of leadership style, is their leadership support, to us being innovative, to such initiatives, support financially as well, and otherwise it's key. The working environment, how safe is it? Is it hostile? Is it psychologically safe? Of course, investment as it relates to training, certifications and development, awareness, and all of those things. So thank you very much, Mr. Innocent, for sharing. So now I'll move to Mr. Michael. So now that we've seen some of these factors, how do we then ensure, because there might be people in the organization that do not understand what this information security is all about. So how do we ensure from leadership down to, the lower level that we see information security not as a blocker, but rather as a business enabler? And that's for Mr. Michael. How do we ensure that this perspective shift and change is done so that there is better adoption?
All right, so it's first of all good to understand why people will want to see information security as a blocker, right? Instead of as a business enabler. Now, for reason like information security may be slowing down business processes, and so it may be perceived as a blocker. Two, it may be restrictive, and so it may be seen as a blocker. And three, it may be quite complicated. Okay, let's take, for example, that staff are supposed to use a particular complicated passwords in order to keep up with the security needs. So in the past, it used to be 8 password length and above is okay, but now it's quite higher, and the minimum now is 12, and it's better if it's 16 and higher. Now, it is quite complicated when people have to memorize very long and also complex password. So it may be seen as a blocker from those perspectives. If they have to do certain things and they have to go through a lengthy process to get it done instead of the formal way of doing things, it may be a problem. If everything that employees ask from IT, you always hear, no, it can't be done because of security. Now that becomes a problem, and it's usually seen as a blocker from those perspectives. So the point now is, how can we change this perception, right, and reposition people to be more supportive to IT security? And also, how can we help employees see that they're adding value, and seeing security as a value function? So what is proposed is important for organizations to align their security objectives to their business objectives. So in other words, if you're setting your information security objectives, don't set it up in silo. Look at what your organization objective is and see how you can cascade those goals from your organization business objectives down to your security objectives. It helps in order to have that perception to build value. Another thing is to educate employees and help them understand why certain requirements are there. So it's not just we want to do something, is why do we need to do it? How does it add value to the organization? When staff start to see, or employees start to see the value, why those things are required, then they are more in a position to support security and see it as a business enabler than being a blocker to security. Are we together, or can I give an example in this respect?
Sure.
Okay, so I remember many years ago, there was the organization I was working with. We wanted to do an ISO certification, so we were preparing for an external audit. And I was an internal auditor in that organization. So we had some consultants who were there, and they were helping us with our documentation and everything to be in place. So just some few days before the audit, one of the consultants met me and said that I should calculate the IS objectives. And I was new to it. I looked at the IS objectives. I can't even make sense of what I am supposed to calculate, why I am calculating, and all of those. And so I was dragging behind, and the day was getting, and on that audit day, I had not done it. So it was a lot of problem, and the consultant quickly, did the calculation, and just a few hours, the auditor requested for the audit objectives. I want to see how the metrics were calculated, and then the man was looking at me like, you would have messed us up here today. So the problem is, yes, listen to the consultant, fine, that was what was drilled down to me, but I did not understand why I had to do those things. So it affected how I was able to respond to what they require me to do. So beyond just having rules, having policies and all of those, it's very important to educate staff to know why those requirements are there. Then they'll be more eager to support the process.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing, Mr. Michael. There was a lot that has been said, but again, one of the key things that I took in is ensuring that we align our business objective early. with that of our security objectives. That is key, and that is important in ensuring that people begin to see this as an enabler. They understand how, why this is important, and then they are able to align. So thank you very much, Mr. Michael, for sharing. Now to Mr. Innocent, in your presentation, you had highlighted the important role of leadership, right? In providing support to us as team members, financially and otherwise. So what would you say is the role of leaders? And maybe you can even give practical steps that executives can take, to ensure that they are leading security from some of the ways that leaders can showcase this security first mindset across the organization, and what are some of the practical steps that these leaders can also model to be able to show security behavior themselves? Mr. Innocent.
All right. Thank you very much, Esther. All right. So everything rises and falls on leadership. I already said that. They set the tone. And of course, they have to lead by example. So by experience, we know the kind of struggle we go through. I know Mr. Michael would attest to this when leadership is not involved in the project, in the implementation. So when we are trying to help an organization, adopt this, this belief system, and all of a sudden they put some people in front and say, go anytime the thing they're asking for, just go. I'm busy. So they're always lagging behind, saying the team should go and all. That experience was not a good one, was not palatable at all. So what has worked for us is seeing how we can, seek buy-in or get buy-in from management. Okay, so buy-in in the sense that we're able to understand, like I said earlier, what matters the most to them, what is of paramount importance to the management or to leadership. Okay, and then when we are, we have the opportunity to present our case, to them, whether a business case, or statement of a problem. So we're going to management and we're saying, yes, this is, we think, is the way to go, because this is how it's going to impact, for some, how it's going to impact our bottom line. So there are some, once they hear it's going to impact our bottom line, the mode will change. For some others, it can help us, make our processes more seamless. All right. So these are different things, different we'll consider ways we can encourage or bring this program for management to key or take buy from. Then for those in management, nobody knows it all. Okay, so your ability to give room for innovation, there's that aspect. And you see some organizations adopting research and development, they are beginning to give room for a lot of research and development, saying, okay, what is obtainable in our industry? What can help our business, stand the test of time? What can make us more sustainable? Or what are even the regulators saying? So once you're able, you're in management or you're a leader, and you have that kind of mindset of giving people, the opportunity to air their views or talk about what's, should help the organization, then its management should be up and ready to do what? To support the project or the initiative. One step is to set up an information security steering committee. Okay. So it's a project. We want it to infuse, to be embedded into the culture and the workings of the organization. So it's not a one-man affair. So those organizations that believe they will do everything by themselves as leaders, they've gotten it wrong. It will not succeed. So you need a team. You need to cast division as a leader and say, see, security should no longer be considered as an afterthought. It should be security by design and security by default. So what is prevalent? What best practice should we embrace at this time? So as a leader, you need to be available. As a leader, you should be willing to lead by example. Like I said, setting up a committee, making yourself available, to participate in. Resources, of course, you need to make your required resources, available. Of course, give room for training, education, enlightenment, and awareness. And of course, the bigger one is adopting a framework. That's a good way to keep you guys on check. in check, all right? It's a very good way. So once you have adopted a framework as an organization, whether I'm there or not as a leader, it will run. So we've seen good number of organizations where they tell you the first year you see the leader championing it and telling you, don't worry, he's doing everything possible to make sure that his team is carried along, they understand. The following year, you still see him, struggling to make his people see why they have to be part of it. The third year, he's scolding at, there was one particular audit section I had. I particularly told the MD, he was on the call, it's a small organization somewhere, in South. I particularly told the MD, I said, next year, if I'm opportune to be the auditor next year, please, sir, I don't want to see you on the call. As in, it was that bad. It was that bad because he felt he was in a position to decide for everybody. Somebody wants to say something, you are saying the wrong thing, and also as a leader, one, we must give room for, like I said, innovation. We must be open to ideas. We need to empower people, set up the right committees. I always appreciate that committee approach. It has really helped many, many, many organizations. You won't be bothered about who is leaving or who is staying. Okay, that's one. So we start together. And that culture distills, through those members of the committee to departments, to different units, individuals across the organization. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for sharing. Please, if you have any question, feel free to drop it in the comment section. If you also like us to give you an opportunity to put on your camera, and ask the question, please just let us know and we will do that. So some of the key things I took from your response is, of course, it's very important for leaders to allow for innovation. They should be able to support us, allow us to lead, make the resources available. You also spoke about something very key, which is we should get that support from leadership to adopt a framework. And, we should also have things like ISF and Information Security Forum so that the leaders themselves, are involved and are driving the forefront of security. So thank you very much, sir, for sharing. Now to Mr. Michael, how do you ensure that every employee, because we said that we are as strong as our weakest link, right? So every employee from management down to our ad hoc staff, how do we ensure that every employee, regardless of their role, understand that their responsibility in safeguarding information? When Mr. Innocent was speaking, he spoke about eavesdropping, right, as actually one of the ways that we are able to get information and use for the wrong purpose. So how do we ensure, what are some of the things we can do to ensure that every employee, regardless of their role, understand their responsibility in safeguarding information in an organization? Mr. Michael.
All right, so I would narrow it down to three things. It could be more than that, but I'll just talk about three. Number one, make security visible. Two, make it understandable. And three, make it personally relevant, right? And the best way to do these three is to combine education, awareness, communicating security requirements, and making sure that both management and staff support and make people accountable for information security. Now, how do we drive making security visible? It has to start from the top. We can't overstress the importance of management. When management are in support of security, then it trickles down. It will be invisible if you are trying to do it from below. Mm-hmm. It will not have the visibility that it requires. So senior management need to champion information security. They need to make it very visible through awareness efforts. They also need to take it very seriously. When leadership take information security very seriously, then it sends a clear message to everyone that they are accountable for their actions and for the security of the organization. Another thing to do, I talked about making it understandable. To make security understandable, you need to engage in a very robust awareness, starting with creating a very clear information security policy. So it's not enough to have policy, but it's very important for those policy to be clear, to be understandable, to be concise, to be easy to understand, and to highlight very clearly what responsibility of each employee are or is towards information security. Now, it's very good to include specific expectations in those policies, right? How to protect passwords, for example, how to report incidents, how to handle data. All of these need to be very, very clear. And in fact, in many organizations, it's even expected that during the onboarding section, when you're bringing new staff into your organization, information security should be part of the onboarding orientation that needs to be given to this staff. When staff understands, then it becomes very easy to support and have those roles clearly embedded in their mind. Then another thing that they can do, still on awareness, is to deliver role-based awareness. Now, this has been a recent trend in information security space, talking about the role-based security awareness. What we will see most time is to have security, information security awareness or training where you just talk about concept and talk about, how they affect the organization. Role-based means that you need to put a scenario on ground and then interact with those in the room on how to follow through. For example, how do we report an incident? So instead of going through, you go through these procedures, why not just have a particular scenario? Okay, this is a scenario that has happened, and let us imagine that 1, 2, 3 people were witnesses to this incident that has happened. So what do you do? We give it to someone and gives us, play those roles on what is going to do. Okay, from there it goes to the incident manager. So how do you pick it up from there, right? And so all of these will have to be clearly defined. Then it's also important to make information security as clear as possible. Use regular language. Don't use jargons. Don't use technical jargons. Use relatable language. Threats. Use threats that are easily understandable by people around you. Don't talk about things that are out of this world. Then it's also good to, which is not usually done. This is not usually done, but it's very important. Reward good security practices or behavior. In the standard, you always have where disciplinary actions are well defined. So if people are not supporting information security, what are the disciplinary process? You define disciplinary process. But when it comes to people having good behavior, they are not usually rewarded, right? And this sometimes can really dampen the morale. So celebrate employees, for example, those who report incidents, those who report certain threats, those who maybe you've done a phishing simulation and some people have done very well, celebrate them. And then if it's possible, consider giving small incentives or public recognition to those who have added positively to your culture, right? That can also help. And then it's also very important when you do awareness, send quizzes, surveys. It helps you to assess how people understand this culture that is being introduced into the organization. Follow up on people who are not meeting up, follow up on them and give them tips on how to do better some other time. Now, this helps people who are employees to be integrated and see security not as something that which haunts them, but something that add values to them and make them better employee, protecting themselves and also protecting their organization. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Michael. That was a lot to share. Like you said, We should make security visible, make security understandable, and make security personally relevant. I think those are key takeaways. And you also shared ways where we can do that, through awareness, through education, through ensuring that we use a scenario-based approach. You call it a role-based awareness, where we put ourselves in such situations and try and say, okay, how are we able to resolve this if we find ourselves here? Right? Remove every ambiguity and ensuring that it is clear. So thank you so much for sharing. That was very clear. So I've seen Habu Umar. He has his hands up. I don't know if he wants to ask a question. Please, if you do, I will give you the floor to actually ask your question. Or if not, then we're going to continue with us. So if Mr. Habu Umar is here, I've seen his hands up. If you have a question, please feel free and ask while I move on. Okay, so while we wait to hear from him, we've been talking about the importance of education, the importance of awareness, where, leading visibility should come from above, all the way down. Okay, I'm not sure if Mr. Habu is having an issue with his mic or his camera. So please, if my team can support him so that he's able to ask his question. So I will take this question from Mr. Innocent. I'll assign this question to Mr. Innocent while we get Mr. Habu to come up. So we've spoken about this awareness. Now, what are some of the metrics? How do we know that this awareness and this education and these certifications, are there some metrics or some indicators that can help us to understand that, okay, these are our security awareness programs and education, that they are actually impacting our culture? Mr. Innocent.
Yes, thank you very much, Esther, for the question. There is no end to awareness, education, and training as far as information security is concerned. Okay, so it has to be a consensus, continuous, ongoing, regular, activity or exercise, and that should also happen across all levels of the organization. All right, so how do we know that the awareness program is effective, or how do we know if it's delivering, value, to the organization? So when you notice, I think by experience, that the number of violations, policy violation or misbehavior is reducing. Okay, so there are things people within the organization, employees typically would take for granted. Okay, and because the awareness, let me use a practical example of clear desk and clear screen. Okay, there's a policy we call the clear desk and clear screen policy, that mandates everyone not to leave papers, unattended on their desks. And then even if you want to walk away from your PC, okay, ensure that you don't leave it unattended too. So you need to lock and so on. So when you come with this program saying that, okay, this is the right way to go, yes, there may be resistance at some point, because people will typically tell you this is how we have been doing it, or ever since I have been walking away from my desk, who has done anything? That's what is prevalent. All right, but over time, we notice that, yes, people begin to comply. So you see that the number of violations of our policies or misbehavior or misconduct begins to reduce. Okay, reduce. You see that happen. Then you see employees report incidents more. Okay, so there will be increase in the reporting of incidents. Typically, people will tell you it does not concern me. It's not happening in my department. It's not, so, but this time around, because we have been, you have been informed, you kept abreast, as awareness, mandating you, for example, to say, please, if you notice any perceived, actual, suspicious, potential incident, do not hesitate to report to email or phone number. All right. So all of this, so the way you begin to notice people, oh, their system has been hacked, or somebody used a foul language in the office, or people are fighting. I know it can sound funny, okay, but I know what I'm talking about. So where you have that situation where there's tendency for people to, report without, they see it as part of life, because I need to help the organization, maintain a good security posture. So once you notice that increase, okay, in the reporting of incidents, okay, of different types or categories, then that tells you something, okay? They have recognized the channel, they have read the message, they've understood the message, you know. So if you now notice certain things happening around certain areas and people are not doing anything about it, saying anything about it, then there's a problem with the awareness program. So I mentioned reduction in the number of incidents or reduction in the magnitude of violations, yeah. Then when you notice increased reporting of incidents, that also sells message. Then of course, because like my senior brother or experts, I would say, on the call has said, since we are looking at security, you know, aligned to the business objectives, aligned to the strategy or strategic direction of the organization, that of course it should bring improvements, significant improvements. It should impact positively on the bottom line. It should make the organization more recognized. The organization should have seamless, you know, processes in place. So when we begin to see, begin to see the figures go up, I know in many cases they will not say it's information security. They will say it's sales, right? Customer service or marketing. Nobody will call InfoSec or risk at all, you know, but they contribute significantly to what, you know, we get as a, you know, as a revenue or inflow. There are certain funds that maybe we would have lost if we are not careful. Of course, we hear of cyber attacks, you know, here and there, you know, to steal funds and so forth. So because we have put up the right security posture that helps save us from that loss, then of course, you know, at this level of awareness, someone calls a staff, you know, like the way we talk about the social engineering attack, you know, asking for certain credentials or information about somebody, and then they are not obliging, they don't give out that information, and you're notifying the team internally that if you notice anybody calling you with this number, it's fraud. So he just called me. So that tells you something. That's some, you know, the message is beginning to make sense to employees, you know, within the organization. So when you notice there's a reduction in the fish prone rates, you know, it's what we call fish prone, you know, rates, yeah, susceptible to fall for those kind of attack. When you notice a reduction in the regulatory infractions, so reduction, regulatory infractions, okay. So you also say yes, to a large extent, there's, you know, high level of awareness. People are now more informed to understand that information security is not managed in silos, like Mike has said. Okay, it is part and parcel of our business. So if we are conscious of the kind of information that we manage, why we need to protect our assets, we'll also be conscious of our reputation. So we will not want to cross the line. We will not want to be in the news for the wrong reasons. I was asking one of my clients recently, I said, as long as you're not in the news for the wrong reasons, we are okay. Do you understand? So those things will come to your mind and say, okay, we need to protect our interests to a large extent. So when you notice, okay, improvement in staff morale, yes, I also believe the concept Mr. Michael also brought to the table about the reward system, which is not common. You know, we have not even scratched the surface. We only hear things like bug body. I think that's the only one you hear in the West, where, you know, once you participate in the QA section and you notice any bug, then you are rewarded. There's some incentive. So we want it to go beyond that. And let's look at it holistically. Anywhere there's some level of compliance, you know, we should be able to encourage, you know, that attitude or, you know, of that individual.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing. I think that was one point I missed from Mr. Michael's response. If we are going to penalize bad behavior, we should also be able to reward good behavior, right? So thank you for sharing. Some of the metrics you mentioned is we will see the violations would be reduced. Employees are going to report more when incidents happen. We'll definitely see an improvement in our bottom line, whether we relate it directly or indirectly to InfoSec. And of course, you spoke about the fish pond rate and the regulatory infractions. Yes. So thank you so much for sharing. So we have a question from the audience. I will take it. I'll ask, I think Mr. Michael will address it, and then Mr. Innocent will also add more to that. So this is from Dr. Godson. He said, should information security cover enterprise process end-to-end, or should it be restricted to a needs-only basis? Should information security cover enterprise process end-to-end, or should it be restricted to a need-only basis? So, Mr. Michael, you may want to address that, and then Mr. Innocent, you can add on to that, and then we can move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you for that question. The information security should not be on a need basis. It should be enterprise-wide. And that's because information is available at every point of an organization. They work with data, and so they need to secure those data and then make it work. Now, and that is why top management is needed to push this enterprise-wide, right? There is usually this slogan in information security that you are only as weak as, only as strong, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And the same thing is applicable in an organization, right? An organization is only as strong as its weakest link. And it could be people, right? Most times people. And then it could be people at every point in the organization. You have people who have access to digital print sensitive information, but some people could have such information not in digital print, but they can engage in conversation, right? And such conversations could also be a way to disclose very sensitive information. There was an experience of in an organization where an information leaked just by someone who was making a phone call, right, while he was waiting for an elevator. He was just making a phone call, probably bragging about a particular deal they're about to sign, right? And just beside these individuals are people from the news, and the next thing, this information is, in the newsprint. Now, this individual may not be particularly having hard copy of information to share with people, right? But in normal conversation, it goes out. And that's how it is in every other aspect within the organization. So if information security is not properly implemented across every part of the organization, you will not properly know how to handle information. You will not understand what information are classified, how they should be handled, right? Even to the least information handled or processed within that organization. So while it's true in some organization, while you need to implement, you implement in scope, right, for implementation purposes. So it may be to some areas and with the hope of expanding to other areas as time goes on. But in implementing information security, right, it should be enterprise-wide. Right. The progression may be slower. You may start with IT, for example, then move to HR and some other core places. But over time, it should go round to the entire organization, and information security should be enterprise-wide.
All right, thank you, Mr. Michael. Mr. Innocent, do you want to add on to that?
Okay, let me do something. The question here is, should InfoSec cover enterprise process end to end? The answer is yes. Consider this scenario. You have, in an organization, you have an admin department, and in that admin department, you have a number of cleaners, okay? People who clean, they have their cleaning team, okay? And they send these cleaners to all offices, data centers, on all floors in the organization. So when the cleaner comes to your office, what would you do typically? Okay, you can either ask him to come in and do something for you. You could decide to take a walk while he's doing it. So you have exposed yourself. In other words, you have left the office for the cleaner to do his job. So imagine if this cleaner does not understand the importance of information security, and he begins to maybe poke nose into certain things, see what you have left on your desk, on the grounds that, okay, I just stood up for him to just clean, for me to see it, or so now you are having cleaners, like he mentioned, that a chain is as strong as the weakest link. You're not having the weak ones now saturating the whole environment. So you don't even know or ascertain the extent of what information they have access to or what they can do with that information. Someone, statistics has it that about 40% of attacks attributed to insider, activities of insiders. So people who are knowledgeable about the organization, knows the workings of the organization, maybe work there or have worked there before. Okay, so now you have a situation whereby somebody is trying to, get some kind of valuable, sensitive information or asset about an individual, or the way the organization runs, and decides to go through these people who you supposedly consider as maybe insignificant. So what are we doing to ourselves? So you see why security must be considered, not like an afterthought I mentioned, but by default. You get into certain board meetings. Sometimes when we sit, just to observe and hear what they say, you're like, somebody is still complaining this day and age about this password people are changing every time. I mean, so if sorry to say that, but so if we don't take our time to make these persons understand that it's not about the password they're changing, we know you are occupying a very significant position in this organization, right? So if we don't do everything possible to protect you, so this is a way to protect you by making sure that we are sure you are the one, giving this instruction. We are sure at every given point in time that any information that comes from your end, we know you are the one sending it, because there's a tendency for you to. So that's a concern. So it means that it has to be embedded in our processes. If you want people to follow or comply, it has to go with the processes. So when we're talking about the processes, when you another instance is someone who joins the organization and you are giving him our assets. What are assets in that instance? You give him an ID card, you give him a laptop, right? Okay, you created an account. Yeah. So you don't stop there. You're telling him, oh, remember you signed confidentiality. Remember acceptable use. You need to ensure that, okay, you don't allow anybody to use your details. You don't leave it unattended to. You don't. So that's a way to infuse it, like Michael said, at the point of onboarding. So I don't see the reason why it should be restricted, because you never can tell. These guys are highly sophisticated. They don't go to sleep. They don't do 9 to 5. Eh? So I mean, let's do what we can to ensure that we maintain a very good security posture. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Innocent and Michael, for addressing the question. Now, there, of course, everybody is integrating AI, in working. So relating artificial intelligence to information security, and this question is from Mr. Innocent. How can we leverage AI to promote information security best practice, across an organization? And then are there also some risks that we can consider in the adoption of AI as it relates to promoting information security best practices?
All right. Thank you very much for your question. Yes, AI happens to be the lips of everybody now, and a lot of people are trying to, run off, the notion that, okay, they are all positives alone. So I'm glad that you've asked, this question. Of course, from what we see, and the reports we've been getting, it has helped us, improve speed, of course, improved efficiency, of course, greater insights. I mean, you don't have a system that can get tired, and of course you have, delegated maybe little tasks, something that are repetitive in nature, kind of, to such systems. Yeah, so it's not a bad idea, embracing, AI. But I would say from experience that if you have not adopted an information security system, bringing in AI to help your system will be, and I don't know, what do I use now, will be a very big mistake, because people are saying, you hear a lot of things about, yes, let's bring AI, let's be here and every, and no. For you to adopt AI, you must have a policy in place. You must have a policy in place. What is the purpose of AI? In other words, what problem is this AI coming to solve for us? It's not a situation of because other organizations are adopting, AI or enabling AI on different systems, and then therefore we throw it that way. And AI, it depends on training data. So whatever data is able to learn, gather over time, it gives it out without considering its location. Once you're able to put in the right instruction or questions, it doesn't consider the fact that it's not the actual, either owner or acquirer that is asking. All right. So we must understand this. So very key, like I said, is you want AI for any reason, start by having an AI policy. So the AI policy is clear regarding what we need to use AI for. What aspect of our organization or systems do we allow AI, so to operate? What we're looking at the purpose, like I mentioned earlier on. How will it be regulated? How will it be regulated? So to ensure our own safety and security. Okay. Then of course there has to be accountability structure. So for you to be able to manage AI effectively. So you cannot just leave it all to yourself. So if there are changes, if there are concerns around it, you're able to you have a team or you have a group of people in the organization who can make certain decisions regarding its use. Okay, so it's all around town anyways. There are quite a number of risks. Well, from the angle looking at it as a risk professional, I would say there are more disadvantages for now than advantages. I'm not of the opinion that I know I may sound like a pessimist. Like I said, I'm looking at it from a risk point of view. So there are a good number. So it's better you have a good understanding of what this tool is coming to achieve, help you achieve as an organization. Of course, if you're able to understand it and properly place it and ensure that there's proper governance, accountability, like I said, then you will have an issue. Okay. So, but the risk, like we know, of course, bias. Okay. So you can get unfair outcomes, a number of reports here and there of false positives, all over town, because it still has its own limitations. Even though it gives us the speed, somebody has to still sit down to validate. You hear different kind of stories of where it was used to shortlist candidates, and all of a sudden the people who should have been shortlisted for the interview were not shortlisted. It now took other people who we're not even supposed to be in the room at all. So you have wasted time already. You have wasted time by doing that, and that's why governance of AI is very important. So you don't just leave it to yourself. You must be clear regarding what. So the issues of bias, of course, because it depends on data. It's trained with data. So what if the data is compromised? What if, so there are risks around that. Yeah, there could be, misinformation, risk of manipulation, of course, lack of transparency, like I mentioned earlier, or even explainability of how it functions, the model, So if you cannot explain it, and that's why you must be clear about the purpose, you must understand, like I said, governance of AI is very important, where we know in clear terms, this is what's meant to do for us, how it's meant to function, okay? And then if we need any form of enhancement or improvement where it can be applied, regarding the algorithms, involved. And of course, like every other technology or tool or solution, is susceptible to cyber attack, right? It is still susceptible. So even if it's AI Cloud 9, you want to call it, it's still susceptible. So we will still try our best.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Mr. Michael, do you want to add on to that? Now I'm thinking it means for us to consider adopting AI as it relates to information security, there are lots of things that we need to put into consideration, right? With what you've just said right now, accountability is important. We have to first of all understand it, identify all the risks, and do a cost-benefit analysis and see if it's even worth it or not. Mr. Michael, do you also want to add on to that before we move on quickly?
Yeah, I think what Innocent has described is very comprehensive on the AI. It's still at the earliest stage, and it's inevitable. AI is here, and AI will do what it needs to do over time. Yeah. However, the risks are very, very high, right? With the risk are very, very high, and introducing that into our organization at this time needs a lot of risk assessment. Just the same thing we do for engaging cloud services. Cloud services, you also need to do your assessment around those cloud services and do risk around it. AI too, that would be very, very important. And like has been said earlier, we start with the AI risk policy. Let's know what AI wants to do within the organization. Yeah. And to also help us identify the risk to AI at this time, so that while implementing, it's implemented with caution. Just see the way it's used in the social space, right? For every little incident that happen in the social space, you see someone asking, Grok, is it true? Right? And what do you want the AI to produce? It's going to scroll the internet, find relevant information, make a judgment, and give. So if the algorithm is skewed to a particular kind of reasoning, that's the kind of reasoning you're going to get, right? And so we will get there. Over time, it will get better. More research will be done into it. Organizations that have the capabilities, to implement AI, yes, of course, they can go ahead and get the benefits of it. While those that don't have that capability as much can wait a little, sit back, see how other organizations have learned from it, have gotten their fingers burnt, learned from the lessons, and then yes, they can now implement over time.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Michael and Mr. Innocent, for sharing. Again, at the end of the day, let's do our cost-benefit analysis first. Let's create a policy towards it and see even if it's something we can adopt before going ahead to adopt AI, weighing the benefit and also the risk. So thank you so much for sharing. So now, how can we move an organization from being just compliance driven, right? So it's not focusing on, okay, we want to be ISO 27001 certified. Okay, how do we move from just the governance part of it to ensure that we have a value-based security culture, so that it's not just about the certification, the compliance, and the governance side of it, but it becomes our way of life as an organization. So I'd like to hear from Mr. Michael, and then Mr. Innocent can also add on to that. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much, Esther. A value-based security culture is one where people do the right thing, right? Not because there are people around or they are told to do that, but because they believe in doing the right thing, okay? And so there needs to be a shift in how security is perceived, the purpose of security within the organization. So imagine an organization that wants to has information security, but they only implement in order for them to pass audits or to avoid penalties. That is simply it's not value-based, right? It's not value-based. It's just compliance. Are we checking the box and then we're ticking it? But we want to go to a situation where security tends to protect people, customers, organizations, missions, their reputation, without even thinking twice. Okay, so how does this happen? Help staff or employee to understand the impact of security to them, to their privacy, to their data, to their role. So imagine going into an organization or a department, and then you find sensitive data tossed into the waste bin, right? And then you pick it up. This is quite sensitive. We should have been shredded. Okay. Help the staff to understand, what if this same thing is done in the HR department? And imagine that this is your own confidential information, perhaps maybe showing your payslip or your address, personally identifiable information, and then it's in the waste bin, which will be thrown in the bigger waste bin outside, right? And will be available to dumpster divers, right? So how you feel when you later see your information out there, someone use it to sell something, right? So it drives home. You see the importance. While you have responsibility to keep privacy or to protect the information within your ambit, also know that your own information is in someone else's care, and other people are making effort to protect those kind of information. Then use real life situation experiences to talk about those breaches. Another thing that can be done to move to a value-based culture is to, like I said earlier, reward good behavior, right? Celebrate people who are doing well. Okay, it helps them to see a better way of doing it. It reinforces and motivates them to do the right thing instead of just the fear for punishment and a fear for maybe being scolded. Then another thing is make awareness regular, right? Let people see. Maybe every month you can send out tidbits to train people and to help them see why information security is important, and such should be continuous. You know, continuous learning is better than just a one-off thing and then you've marked off information security awareness for the year. Okay, do simulated phishing. Let people, without informing them, let them receive mails, see how many people will click links, and then you have information to work with. That can be a basis for even further awareness, you know, based on what was done. Then a lot of organizations have also done this. They've done, they have information security week or information security day. So they dedicate a day to promote information security, or a week to promote information security. That is very, very important. It helps to instill culture, you know, within the organization. People know what information security is about. And then some organizations even organize road shows, right? And they go to a lot of people, invite guests, you know, in during such weeks, in order for them to have such value within their organization. And doing that will help staff or our employees to see the benefit, you know, to see the value to them, to the organization, and not just compliance alone. That's because compliance alone does not guarantee security, right? You might tick all the boxes, but still you may not be very secure. But when you have that value within the organization, you push it even when no one is watching, and then you have a more robust security for the organization.
Thank you very much, Mr. Michael. Mr. Innocent, do you want to just add on quickly to that?
Okay, thank you. People should see the policy work, please. Very important. People should see. People should see the policy work. Yeah, you go to certain places and there's a policy, no doubt, but they tell you, when you get to certain people, they tell you, no, it doesn't apply to them. And like, are they not part of the organization? So when you have that behavior, the people become reluctant with time and say, after all, it's whenever they are around, it's important. Or once I'm not in this category, as long as I'm not in this category, I shouldn't be affected as well. So, and then we notice such behavior from leadership, you know. So when people begin to see the policy work, like we said, reward good behavior, right? And then if there's any form of violation. So once people begin to see that, okay, yes, there is a working policy. It's not just a signature on a paper that, you know, so they know that this thing is operationalized to a large extent. I can bet you, I've seen that work like magic. Before you know it, you know, I mean, you know, it's like, what kind of instance do I give? Or someone is coming, you have the cup on the table, you know, when he leaves, you remove the cup. When he comes again, you put there. When he leaves, you remove the cup. When he comes again, you put it there. When he leaves, you understand? So once you know that this cup has to be on the table, over time you learn to leave it there. Because you know that it is come to stay. But some people still have this notion or believe that, don't worry now, once we cross this stage, it's not recertification we're looking for. Once we cross it, it's business as usual. It's like a coat or a blanket that you remove and wear, in a particular period or season. A client some time ago, when we asked about management review, that's a key requirement. Like, did you have management review? Are there reports to the effect, minutes of meetings, and so on? So the next thing that happened was, she brought out one. I mean, maybe no more than 2 or 3 pages, regimented. If you look at it, it's the same look last year, the same structure, same look 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I was like, why is the report, why is it looking like this? The answer was, this is the one for ISO. The one we do internally is different. I was like, what did you just say? I want to understand that this one is for you, for you guys, but the one we do internally is different. So now the understanding was, let's keep up, okay, but why some other organizations have seen the benefits and know that, okay, it has become part and parcel of our operations. Whenever we're discussing anything, it's what we have always considered. So like I said, number one is people should see the policy work. You should show workings, like we used to say. So where we need to publish results and say you are doing well, let's be outright, let's be excessive in that regard and say, yes, this you have done well at the end of this period. For we said this department has recorded 0 violation, and we give them the trophy that period, things like that. So we should show workings. Then we need to bring that conversation into every room. The way people do opening prayer or say opening prayer before any meeting starts, or the way we say national anthem, So at least let it get to that point where it is recognized. So we begin to have some people at that level who are more or less like our ambassadors. So when staff begin to look up to them, somehow there is something about, likes, attracting like, there's something about adopting a behavior or a culture when you are in that same environment. And that's what, we have seen over the years. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing. Again, the keyword is let the policy work, or let us show the workings, like you said. Okay, thank you very much for sharing. So as we round up, now I'll throw this at Mr. Michael. Now, as it relates to trends now, right? So based on your experience in the industry, how do you see, or what trends do you see in how organizations are approaching security culture, maybe in the next 3 to 5 years? What trends are we likely, to see as it relates to approaching a security culture? And that's for Mr. Michael.
Okay, so thank you. One of the trends that we'll see more, I think we'll see more, is this remote and hybrid work culture, right? Before the pandemic in 2020, very few organizations adopt this remote or work from home culture, but now it's becoming part of it. But it has its own security implications when you have to work remotely and when you have to do hybrid, where you have to go to the office some days and work from home some other days. So what we'll begin to see are solutions, tools that will take into cognizance the fact that people work hybrid or people will work from home. And so they will place a lot of securities around the risk associated with such hybrid work and remote work. So we can really look up to that and that from happening. Even in areas of virtual collaboration, it will keep growing, right? I'm not sure there is going to be an end to this anymore. Will keep growing, and the security implications will keep growing too. So for security, we need to continue to look at possible risks around remote and hybrid working, and then we'll start seeing solutions that will be tailored to ensure that we have culture that take care of these security lapses. Then another thing we're going to see, which we've talked about earlier, are AI being introduced and embedded into organization with its security concerns, right? And part of the advantage is going to have, I was part of a testing group for a PhD study of someone who was part of the thesis, the work was on a GRC tool. And so what one of the fascinating thing about that tool was that once you upload a policy document on the tool, it's AI powered to generate an awareness slide, not just the slide alone, even an awareness video that will run on YouTube based on your policy. Right? And so that is becoming very popular among a lot of these GRC tools. So we're going to see more of these as we go on, where we have a lot of AI-powered awareness, you know, coming up using organizations' data, right, to be major input into the awareness that will be generated using this AI powered. So machine learning AI will be used to do all of those. We help to detect risk within the organization, looking at behavioral pattern. We help to predict, you know, and prevent some kind of threats within the organization. So that is another trend that I think is going to be very popular. And still on the AI, we're going to have a lot of data-driven solutions that will help for decision making. You know, with this big data capabilities, machine learning, and all of these, it will help organizations to feed into their robust data, right? And then it will help them to make decision, not only business decision, but also security decision in the years to come. So there are a lot of capabilities being built, you know, around AI, and it will definitely affect how we see security now, and it's going to also improve how security will be implemented in organizations. So those are the areas I'm seeing the trend. Blockchain is still there too, you know, but these are just some of the trends I think we'll see in the next 3 to 5 years.
All right, thank you, Mr. Michael. Mr. Innocent, do you have more to add?
Well,
Even though that question was for Mr. Michael, he spoke about remote and hybrid working,
yes,
AI adoption, blockchain. Do you have maybe one or few to add on?
Just one. Okay. There's the landscape, regulatory landscape also is fast changing. Okay, as well. So whether it's shifting towards AI or, you know, the data protection or cybersecurity, we'll continue to see regulators begin to churn out, you know, more and more and more, you know, regulations, even if it's not in your own jurisdiction, but because you are doing business with partners outside your jurisdiction, you are forced to comply with it if your own regulators are not catching up. Okay, so that is what is happening, and that's what I see also in the next, 3 to 5 years. So there will also be more complex, you know, regulatory landscape. So you can't just jump into any kind of business. That's what's going to happen. So you must be prepared, you know, ready to also play your own parts in protecting the ecosystem. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. So lastly, as we bring the webinar to a close, so I'll hear from Mr. Innocent, and I'll hear from Mr. Michael. So for an organization now that is probably ISO 27001 certified, and of course they are trying to move from, shall I say, compliance to value driven, what are just three key things that, you know, you can advise them to adopt this year or in the coming year to build a security stronger culture?
Okay.
Let's do that in a minute.
All right.
Yes.
So first of all, they need to review their policies. Okay, start with the high level policies. Let us understand the contents of these policies. Are they meant to just remain in the documents, or are they meant to be operationalized? That's the next question. Okay, so that is the starting point. The second level for me is the area of awareness. The area of awareness. So are we ensuring that members of the staff, okay, employees are receiving the right kind of, awareness, sensitization, incentives, you may call it, okay? Are we actually engaging them? There's a difference. This, conduct it, we do it now, we have done it. No. Are we really engaging employees? Do they really understand? We need to close that gap between that, like I said, between what is expected and what is obtainable now. So we need to further get closer to them. We need to sit in the same room with them, from time to time. We need to be part of the solution to their own problems. So let them see that this security program is also what a business is. I mean, your job is not complete if you have not prioritized security. It's not complete, So when you get to that level, then you discover that it's going to, over time, become part and parcel of the organization.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Michael.
Yeah, so I'll go back to leadership. Leadership need to be very involved in information security, and they must be visible, right? Security starts from the top. And so if the leaders show their support, employees will take it very, very seriously. That's one. Number two, we've spread this many times in this webinar, reward and recognize secure behavior, right? Just as we will criticize people for doing what is not right, also recognize individuals, recognize teams that have demonstrated strong security habits, right? That's very, very important. Then if you have a big organization where you've implemented information security, have champions across departments, and have these champions well trained, and have them so that they can promote secure practices within their departments or their units, and then give them regular training, regular updates so that they can be examples within the organization and lead the organization, their departments.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing. So now let's take our final and our closing remark, right? So now we've learned so much, from learning about information security, the role of leadership, how employees can be involved, how do we move from just a compliance-based to a value-driven security organization, the role of AI. We've learned so much. So as we bring the webinar to a close, what would be your final closing remark in just a minute? What you want people to leave here knowing, right? Let's hear from Mr. Innocent and then from Mr. Michael.
You're doing yourself a disfavor if you stay in an environment that has no security agenda. Let's put it that way. Okay, so if you're operating an environment on a day-to-day basis and nobody's saying anything about security, nobody is talking about it, you don't see any, plans to ensure that, okay, there should be that level of, consciousness regarding our information, regarding our assets, regarding how we handle them, regarding, how we relate or interact with each other, how we engage our customers. So if you don't see that drive towards embedding security into the fiber of the business, okay, then there's a problem. So you can be an advocate. There's nothing wrong if you decide to speak up and say, I don't think I'm comfortable with the way things are going here. We can take it, stand. We can engage a consultant, to just talk to us about this security subject. Maybe there may be one or two things we may pick from it, and then before you know it, from there, the bigger picture, you may see a bigger picture, and the bigger regulation, becomes better off in the long run.
Thank you, thank you, thank you very much, Mr. Innocent. Mr. Michael, your final closing remark.
All right, so information security is everyone's business, and everyone have the responsibility to protect the information assets within their purview. And you employees or humans generally are usually the weakest links, mostly the weakest links, and cyber criminals will often exploit this non-technical staff through social engineering, take advantage of your feelings and weaknesses, and then they compromise your organization. There is nobody too small within an organization. Everyone have access to data. Everybody in the organization. HR could handle personal records, finance could process your payments, so sales could have access to customer information. That's how it goes round. Even security guards and cleaners have access to some information that you probably think they don't. The people you mostly neglect within the organization are very, very capable. In fact, someone said that if he wants to compromise an organization, he would rather take the job of a janitor, a cleaner, or a security guard, because they will have access at irregular times to offices and to other documents. So pay attention to even these staff. You think they are not important. These people you look less on in your organization. You give them access to your office and all of those. They have potential to compromise where possible. So give them attention, and also note information security is not just a technical issue. It's not about IT. It's about every part of the organization. So see it as an organization, a strategic business, a strategic decision than an IT business. It helps us to manage information security. Then lastly, management should take the charge in steering information security.
All right, thank you so much. We've learned so much today. I want to especially thank our speakers, Mr. Innocent and Mr. Michael, for taking out time to come and share with us today. So if you are here and you have not even started your information security journey, you know that we've learned that one of the myths is because you're a small organization, that means you're not a target, right? So it means whether it's a big or it's a small organization, you have to be very careful and put in more effort as it relates to being secure with your information. So, or whether you currently have the ISO 27001 certification in your organization, but then you want to see how do we move from being just policy driven, governance driven to being value driven. You know, we're using this webinar to give you a chance to speak with us, right? So we're offering true free. Of course, it will be a first come, first serve. So please just, you can scan the coupon code. We will also share this in our email that will come later. So please feel free to scan the coupon code and speak with us, and let's see how, you know, we'll help you on this journey. Also, for those that are considering, you know, certifications option as well, you know, we offer some of them here, like you can see on the screen. Please feel free to speak with us. Then lastly, one of the initiatives that iCentra is driving, we have a masterclass series. It's absolutely free. So if you want to learn about digital transformation, you want to learn about project management or business agility, you know, please feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to, you know, to register, and we're going to get back to you. So thank you. Feel free to also join us on social media at iCentra, and also our learning unit at iCentra Learning. So again, as we close, I want to especially say thank you to our speakers, Mr. Michael Idemudia and Mr. Innocent. Next month, our webinar would be coming up on the 26th of June, and we'll be doing that in collaboration with Isaka Nigeria, where we'll be talking about AI and cybersecurity. So more information is going to come. And for those that that are interested, please feel free. And we have pasted the link to the LinkedIn page of Mr. Michael, Mr. Idris. Please feel free to connect with them. Feel free to connect with myself, right? And if you want us to, you want to get more information about our upcoming webinar, we will also post the link to our newsletter. Kindly subscribe, and then we'll see you in our next webinar. So thank you so much to everybody for joining. Thank you, Mr. Michael. We're very grateful. Thank you, Mr. Innocent. We're very grateful. And to everyone that has joined us, we're grateful. See you in our next webinar, the 26th of June. All right. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Michael.
Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Innocent. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Join us for a transformative journey of learning, growth, and innovation. Explore cutting-edge business trends, gain insights from industry leaders, and network with global professionals. Get ready to transform with iCentra. Stay tuned for updates, exciting topics, and renowned guest speakers. Keep an eye on all our social media pages for more details. Your transformation journey continues here. Transformed by iCentra.